everyone, welcome back. My name is Sarah and I'm glad you're all here for lesson 6 of my photo classes. I wanted to send a huge thank you to everyone who submitted photos from last week's scavenger hunt. Looks like you had a lot of fun getting out there and trying to find all the crazy things that I had on the list for you guys. It's always fun for me to see what you guys are seeing out there. And especially with a scavenger hunt, it's kind of open for interpretation, so how each person sees things. So it's really neat to see when I give you sort of a topic, how each of you sees that topic. So thanks for submitting all your images. If you missed out on the weekly slideshow, I will link it below for you to watch. So feel free after this to go click on over to see what everybody was seeing in their scavenger hunt. But this week for lesson 6, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about framing and how to use it in our photos. So, what is framing? Well, when you take a look at pictures that maybe you have up around your house, you'll notice that they're in a frame. So here I have a picture of my dog when I was a kid. Her name was Paddington. And I love this picture of her so much so that I decided to put it in a frame and put it up in my bedroom. And a frame is exactly that. It is something that goes around our image or our photo because we want to highlight something. So how we can use framing in our photos is we can find a frame and put it around the subject that we want to take a photo of to highlight or show the viewer exactly what we want them to look at. So instead of taking a physical photo frame and putting it inside of a scene, what we're doing is we're looking for frames that are occurring all around us and using them to highlight a subject. So what exactly does that look like? Well, why don't we take a look at a few examples to see how framing can occur. It can occur in nature, and it can also occur in man-made things, like buildings or houses. So let's take a look at a few examples. Okay, so here's an example of a frame that you might find in your house. What I've done is I've used this circular plate to highlight the orange slices on it. Frames can be both circular, they can be triangular, they can be a square or a rectangle. But what they're doing is they're creating a frame around the subject that you want your viewers to look at. Here's another example. I've got a cutout in my house and I wanted to display all the different coffee makers that I have. So what I did was I made sure that the frame of the cutout, I used that to frame the coffee makers. Here's another example of a circular frame. I've got a basket, a little woven basket with some eggs in it. And what I'm doing by putting the frame of the basket inside my photo is I'm showing the viewer where I want them to look at. I'm really sort of focusing in on the eggs. Here's another kind of fun one. I've got these little stuffy critters around my house, and I decided I wanted to show off my little dragon. So I put him inside my plant stand, which acted as a great frame around it. So as you can see, it doesn't always have to be what we think of a frame as a frame that's a square or a rectangle. It's basically an outline that highlights what it is you're taking a photo of. Now, frames can also exist outside. So in this case, it may not be as obvious right away, but we have a branch or a tree on either side of the bench. And then we have the shadow of the tree underneath, and we've got the leaves over top. So it doesn't have to be a defined line. It can be, the ruggedness of the trees, it can be the line of the shadow, as well as the leaves form kind of a frame on top. Archways are another good example of the different type of frames that are out there. So what you're doing with an archway is that you are shooting through the frame. So you shoot through the arch and you use that as your frame to highlight the subject. In this case, it's the rolling hills on the other side of the archway. Here I have an example of a tower that has an archway cutout for the cars to drive through. So what I've done is I'm using something that's already there, a frame that's already there, to highlight my subject. And in this case, I've got a little red car that's driving through. Here's an example we saw originally in the leading lines, where we kind of have these lines of the archways guiding us. And that's kind of what frames do as well. What they do is they guide the viewer to what we want them to look at. In this case, we have sort of a frame within a frame within a frame. We have 3 archways acting as frames, guiding the viewer's eye towards the tree and the house in the background. Here's an example of an archway that I found on a street when we were traveling throughout Italy, and I really liked when I looked up back towards this arch how nicely it frames the house behind it. So you're watching for these frames that occur and seeing how they can frame different subjects in your photos. Now your frame can exist behind the subject. So in this case, we've got 2 trees that are nicely framing the fountain in front of it. And again, it doesn't have to be this idea of a 4-sided or 3-sided. Here, it's kind of the tree branches reach at the top and create kind of a little bit of a triangular type shape, but then we also have the straight lines on either side. So it doesn't have to be a defined frame like we think of a photo frame. Here, the trees are in front of the subject. So we've got 2 trees that frame the church in the background. So we're always looking for, you can kind of think of it as you're walking along and you see things, if there are objects out there that frame a subject, you can use those objects to highlight and show the viewer what you want them to look at in the photo. Now, I wanted to show you an example of a way in which you can use your point of view with framing. So we've talked a lot about changing your point of view, getting up, getting down, moving left, moving right. But what happens if you move closer or farther away? Well, here's an example. We've got a fence that allows you to kind of frame the fountain behind it. And what caught my eye was the little statue on the top of the fountain. Now I'm kind of far away here, so I've got a lot of the fence in the photo. I've got a lot of the bottom part of the fountain. But what really interested me was the top part of the fountain. So this was the first picture that I took, and then I decided to get a little closer. So I changed my point of view by moving closer, and this time I just included the top part with the 2 spikes so that I could really frame and focus on the top part of the statue. So, continuing on with what we've learned so far, using our point of view when we take our pictures, we can now start moving closer or farther away to see how that changes our photo. All right, how's everyone feeling about framing? Do you guys have a better understanding of exactly what framing is and how we can use it to make better pictures, better photos? Well, that's what your assignment is going to be for this week. What I'm going to get you guys to do is to go out, take photos, look all with the idea of looking for frames that are out there and how you can use them to frame up a subject. So you can find frames that occur in nature, such as maybe trees that outline a path, or tree branches that maybe frame a leaf or an acorn or a pine cone. So you're finding things that sort of occur in nature and using them as a frame to frame your subject. You can also find things in man-made things, like in our homes or in buildings. You can have window frames, door frames, or if you want to get really creative, you could maybe even create your own frame to frame the subject that you want to take a photo of. So have fun with it. Be creative, get out and explore. And if you find that at first it's a little bit challenging maybe to find frames, then it's okay to take a break and come back to it at a later date. You've got a week to go out and take photos. Once you've had a chance and you've found a bunch of frames and taken a lot of photos, what I'd like you to do is go through them all and pick 5 of your favorite photos for the weekly slideshow. And if you're participating, you can email me the images and then we will get them up for everybody to see. So I want you guys to have fun this week. Challenge yourself a little bit to see as many frames as you can. Get out there, explore inside, explore outside. Don't forget to change up your point of view to see how that changes your framing and what it does to your picture. So we're kind of building on the skills that we've learned in the first few lessons and adding them into this lesson. So don't forget your 5 favorite images to submit to me, and you can send those in. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a really good week, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good one. Bye.